The story begins in the year 1944, during the closing years of World War II. The world is in chaos, and Nazi soldiers are plundering treasures, relics, and ancient artifacts from across Europe. Their goal isn't just wealth. Many believe these rare objects hold power beyond imagination. In the midst of this, we see a hooded man being dragged through the chaos by Nazi soldiers. His face is covered with a cloth, and his captured friend watches helplessly as the Nazis take him away. The soldiers finally pull the cloth off, and it's revealed. This man is none other than Indiana Jones. The Nazis, led by a man named Waller, were collecting priceless items. Among their loot was a legendary relic known as the Lance of Longinus, the blade said to have pierced Christ. Indiana, however, wasn't convinced it was real. He was searching for something else, a strange, mysterious artifact that had fascinated historians for centuries. A time-bending dial created by the brilliant Archimedes himself. Waller, clever and calculating, already had part of the artifact in his possession. He knew its value and hid it carefully in his bag. Meanwhile, chaos erupts as bombs explode around them. Indiana seizes the opportunity, escaping the Nazis' clutches. He rushes to a nearby vehicle, jumps in, and speeds away. But to his dismay, two Nazi soldiers climb in with him, mistaking him for their driver. Indiana keeps quiet, steering the car until they realize who he truly is. The moment they recognize him, Indiana makes his move. He leaps out of the moving vehicle, fights off the soldiers, and sprints toward a train carrying Nazi treasures. This wasn't just any train. It was packed with priceless relics and artifacts looted from across Europe. Indiana climbs aboard, battling his way through carriages filled with soldiers and stolen history. Inside one of the compartments, he finds what he's looking for. But disappointment strikes. The artifact he uncovers turns out to be a fake. Waller, always one step ahead, had anticipated Indiana's interest and intentionally planted the decoy. What Waller truly coveted wasn't inside this box. It was hidden elsewhere. He had a machine, created by a brilliant scientist, designed not only to study time, but possibly to travel through it. Indiana presses deeper into the train and spots his captured friend tied to a chair. He quickly frees him, but danger looms as Waller himself appears, holding the device. A fierce confrontation erupts. Indiana punches Waller, snatches the device, and makes a daring escape. Together with his friend, he runs across the speeding train as Nazi soldiers close in. The Nazis are relentless. They set explosives ahead, intending to derail the train. Realizing the danger, Indiana and his companion leap off, plunging into a nearby river. The blast roars behind them, but by some miracle they survive. Floating downstream, Indiana realizes grimly that the Americans, arriving at the scene, have seized the device. The time machine is no longer in his reach. Jump to 1969. Decades pass. The war is long over, and the world has entered a new age, the space race. The year is 1969, and Indiana Jones is no longer the daring young adventurer he once was. Now older, weary, and teaching history as a professor, he hides his scars behind lectures and books that are in his classroom. Indiana asks his students questions about ancient history. They stumble over answers, but one student, a sharp and confident young woman named Helena Shaw, answers flawlessly. She's witty, knowledgeable, and passionate about archaeology. Indiana takes notice. She reminds him of himself in his younger days. Helena isn't just a random student. She's deeply interested in the same mysterious dial Indiana once encountered. During a private conversation, she tells him she's been studying archaeology extensively, and she knows about the Archimedes dial, a device said to alter time itself. Indiana, skeptical but intrigued, realizes she knows more than she should. For years, Indiana had safeguarded a fragment of the dial, the only piece that survived after Archimedes deliberately broke it to prevent misuse. He takes Helena to the library where he had hidden it and reveals the artifact. But danger is never far away. CIA agents, secretly working for Waller, storm the building. Their mission: recover the dial at all costs. Gunfire erupts. Chaos fills the quiet library. Helena, quick-thinking and opportunistic, seizes the dial and flees. Indiana is captured by the agents, forced into a van, and interrogated about the relic's location. Outside, the streets of New York are packed with crowds celebrating the historic Apollo 11 moon landing. Indiana uses the distraction to his advantage. He slips away, steals a horse, and rides through the streets, chased by enemies. Escaping the chaos, Indiana reconnects with an old friend who warns him about Helena. She isn't as innocent as she appears. She has a reputation as a thief who steals and sells rare artifacts for profit, even spending time in jail for her crimes. Indiana, realizing the dial is in dangerous hands, vows to track her down. The auction Indiana tracks Helena to a secret auction, where she's preparing to sell the dial to the highest bidder. He confronts her, demanding she stop, but the room explodes into conflict as Waller himself enters. The Nazi scientist, now living under a false identity while working with NASA, has been waiting for this moment. Indiana recognizes him instantly, never forgetting the face of his enemy from 1944. A brutal fight breaks out. Bidders, thugs, and agents clash, all desperate for the dial. Helena tosses it to her assistant, a clever young man, but Waller overpowers him and snatches the artifact. Before Indiana and Helena can react, Waller flees with his men. Indiana pursues in a desperate chase through crowded streets, riding an auto rickshaw, but Waller escapes once again. Meanwhile, Waller coldly murders his own CIA contact, revealing his true allegiance. He proudly declares, "I was a Nazi. I am a Nazi, and I always will be." No longer hiding, his mission is clear: restore Nazi power using the dial's time-bending capabilities, into the sea. Desperate to reclaim the dial, Indiana turns to another old friend, a seasoned sailor. Helena reluctantly joins him, along with her assistant. They set out to sea, hunting for a sunken Nazi ship rumored to hold secrets about the dial's second half. Beneath the waves, Indiana discovers coffins of drowned soldiers and, eventually, a sealed stone container. But as he resurfaces, Waller's men ambush them, stealing the artifact. Helena, quick on her feet, uses trickery to cause an explosion, and in the chaos, they escape onto another vessel with the stone still in their possession. Indiana studies the object and realizes it hides something inside. Burning it open, they discover a golden shield inscribed with cryptic markings. It reveals the resting place of Archimedes himself, and the location of the dial's missing half. Excitement fills Indiana's heart. After decades, the mystery is within reach. But Helena notices something strange: engraved images that seem centuries ahead of their time. Airplanes, clocks, machines that didn't exist in Archimedes' era. How could he know about them? Indiana is unsettled, realizing the implications. Archimedes might have interacted with travelers from the future. The group sets off toward the tomb of Archimedes, unaware that Waller is close behind. Indiana, Helena, and her assistant now set their course toward the fabled tomb of Archimedes, the genius mathematician who centuries earlier crafted the mysterious dial. Legends say he deliberately broke it into two pieces to prevent misuse, but his burial site supposedly holds the second half. The Cave of Trials, the group enters a cavern system marked on the golden shield. But they aren't alone. Waller's men track them relentlessly, flooding the tunnels with poisonous gas to flush them out. Indiana and Helena push forward, guided by the shield's cryptic inscriptions. The path is treacherous, collapsing bridges, raging waters, and deadly traps carved centuries ago. Helena proves her worth as an archaeologist, interpreting ancient markings and helping Indiana through. Her assistant, resourceful and cunning, lags behind but manages to evade capture, living up to Helena's claim that he can survive anything. After a perilous journey, they reach the chamber that holds Archimedes' tomb. Indiana reverently removes the stone lid, revealing the skeletal remains of the legendary scientist. But alongside the bones rests something extraordinary: the missing half of the Dial of Destiny. Indiana's heart races as he carefully lifts the relic. The two halves align perfectly, the device whole again for the first time in centuries. But what truly shocks Helena is the discovery of objects buried with Archimedes, items that should not exist in his era. A clock, etchings of airplanes, mechanical details far beyond his time. Helena studies the skeleton's wrist and finds a watch, modern in design, unlike anything that should exist in 212 BC. The implications are staggering. Archimedes must have encountered visitors from the future. Indiana, piecing it together, realizes Archimedes may have built the dial not only as a scientific marvel, but as a deliberate connection across centuries. Before they can process it, Waller and his men storm the tomb. A firefight breaks out. Indiana, though older and weary, fights bravely, but he's overpowered. Waller seizes the completed dial, finally unlocking its full power. Indiana is wounded in the chaos, collapsing to the ground. Helena and her assistant escape narrowly, but Indiana is captured. Waller's plan as they travel toward an airfield, Waller gloats over his victory. He reveals his true goal: to use the dial to travel back in time. Not just anywhere, but specifically to 1939, at the dawn of World War II. There, he intends to assassinate Adolf Hitler and replace him, correcting what he calls Hitler's mistakes, and ensuring Nazi domination of the world. Indiana, bloodied but defiant, warns him that history cannot be bent without consequences. But Waller is blinded by ambition, convinced that destiny is his to command. Helena secretly tails them, watching as Waller prepares a plane for his mission. With her assistant's help, she formulates a desperate plan. They will infiltrate the plane and sabotage his journey. The flight through time. Waller's aircraft roars down the runway. At the last moment, Helena speeds alongside on a motorcycle and leaps aboard, clinging to the fuselage. Indiana, restrained inside, watches in shock as Helena fights her way onto the plane. Her assistant follows in a smaller aircraft, attempting to keep up. As the plane ascends, the sky tears open with a swirling vortex of light. The dial activates, guiding them through a temporal fissure. Waller exclaims triumphantly that they are heading to 1939. But something is wrong. Indiana notices subtle discrepancies in the coordinates. Archimedes, in his brilliance, had accounted for something Waller ignored: continental drift. The Earth had shifted over centuries, meaning the dial wouldn't lead to 1939 at all. Instead, the plane bursts through into 212 BC, landing amidst the siege of Syracuse, the exact time of Archimedes himself. Below them, Roman soldiers wage war, catapults hurling fire, and chaos consumes the ancient world. The plane shudders violently under Roman attack. Flaming projectiles smash into the fuselage. Helena fights desperately, Indiana struggles free, and Waller realizes too late that his arrogance has doomed them. The aircraft crashes in flames. Helena and Indiana barely parachute out in time, drifting safely to the ground. Waller and his men perish in the wreck, consumed by their own obsession. Face to face with history. As Indiana and Helena explore the ancient battlefield, they are stunned to encounter Archimedes himself, alive amidst the chaos. The brilliant inventor examines the wreckage of Waller's plane with fascination. He retrieves a strange object, the wristwatch, that would one day be buried with him, closing the loop of destiny. Indiana realizes the truth. Archimedes designed the dial not to allow random travel, but to always return to his own era. The device was a message, a safeguard, ensuring that anyone who tampered with time would ultimately end up here, at the moment of his greatest struggle. Indiana is overwhelmed. For the first time in decades, he feels he belongs. He tells Helena he wants to stay. His life in the modern world is empty, his wife estranged, his son lost in war, his body weary. Here, in the past, alongside Archimedes, he could live out his days with purpose. But Helena sees the danger. She knows Indiana's presence could unravel history itself. Tearfully, she tells him he cannot remain. Indiana resists, begging to stay, until Helena makes a painful decision. With a heavy heart, she punches him, knocking him unconscious. Returned to the present when Indiana awakens, he is back in his own time. The dial lies beside him, silent now, its power expended. Helena stands nearby, her assistant at her side. She explains she had no choice. History needed him to return. Moments later, a familiar face arrives, Marion Ravenwood, Indiana's estranged wife. Helena had reached out, knowing Indiana needed more than adventure to heal. Marion, weary but loving, steps into the room. Their eyes meet, filled with the weight of shared years, loss, and unspoken forgiveness. Slowly, tenderly they reconcile. Indiana, once again surrounded by those who care for him, realizes that his true destiny isn't in the past or the future. It's here in his present. Not as a relic of history, but as a man who has lived, lost, and found love again. As the camera lingers, Indiana and Marion embrace, while Helena watches quietly, knowing her mentor has finally found peace. And with that, the story of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny draws to its end.